Hello everyone. Today's video is going to be about installing Gladinet Cloud Enterprise on Windows Server 2012. There's quite some differences between Windows Server 2008 Service Pack 2 or R2 and Server 2012. You can still use the familiar tools such as the Web Platform Installer to prepare for all the dependency components. And it's getting easier because Windows Server 2012 has a lot more components that are pre-installed with the server. You can go into the server section and then you can see many IIS components installed. I want to single out the IIS Management Console and IIS ASP.NET 4.5. As long as you select these two, the rest will be included as well. And there's not too much to install from the framework. The Server 2012 comes with the .NET Framework 4.5. And on the database part, if you do a all-in-one single server installation, you just select the SQL Server 2008 Express and the SQL Server 2008 Management Studio. There's an alternative way to check those dependency components for the prerequisite. You can use the Server Manager and going into the Local Server section, and we need to scroll down to the bottom of the Local Server page. There is a Roles and Features section that you can see all the roles and features that are enabled. So for example, .NET Framework 4.5 that's included with the server. You need to see the ASP.NET 4.5. You can enable that from the Web Platform Installer IIS ASP.NET 4.5. There's IIS Management Console. You need to install that. And also the Web Server IIS that comes with the default Windows Server 2012. So there's less components to install, and it's getting easier. It's getting ready easier. There are two different Gladinet Cloud Enterprise packages. One is for the single company, and the other one is for the multi-tenant service provider. For the single company package, that's the one we are using now. Because it connects to one single Active Directory, so there's more Active Directory optimizations that can be done. So there's some kind of trade-off, right? One is the single company, more optimization towards Active Directory, and the other one is multi-tenant, multiple Active Directory. So depending on what your need is, you can install either the Enterprise Edition or the Service Provider Edition. So pricing wise, they are all the same. Installation wise, they are all the same. So similar user experience. The installation, from beginning to end should take just like less than 10 minutes. It's all streamlined and making it easy to install. Just the standard Windows installer, the MSI installer, just double click on the MSI, and then the installation is going to take you all the way from beginning to end, and it should be done pretty quickly. So now it's copying the files, and it's also using the Windows Server 2012 built-in tool to install and check any dependency components. So for example, there's a HTTP activation feature that needs to be turned on, and now it can be turned on automatically by the installer. So now it keeps on installing the files, and now it comes to the database part. If you are using one single server all-in-one installation, you just point that to the local host SQL Express, and that's all. That's the easiest. If you plan to have a bigger rollout, more than 1,000 users, for example, then you could have multiple server nodes pointing to one single database. So the database is kind of like the brain for the whole cluster, the server farm, and you could scale up the Gladinet Cloud Enterprise offering pretty easily by keep on adding server nodes. So now that's done, right? So the installation from beginning to end should take less than 10 minutes. And so now we need to do a reboot. And after the reboot, we need to do some initial configuration, and we are going to continue to walk you through the configuration once the rebooting is done. So now the server is rebooting, server 2012. Just waiting patiently for the rebooting to be done. So now it comes back on. Once it comes back on and you log into the same account that installed the Gladinet Cloud Enterprise, a web portal page is going to show up. And if it doesn't show up, you can always go to the Gladinet program files, Gladinet, and then click one of the entry, and it's going to bring the configuration page up if you haven't done so. So the very first user is going to be the super admin. So whoever installed and configured the package here is going to be the super admin. And this super admin needs to be a non-Active Directory user, right? It's a chicken and egg, right? So you need to have someone who installed the system and configure the Active Directory, but prior to him doing so, this user is going to be a non-Active Directory user, just a plain email user. So now we can point the Gladinet Cloud Enterprise instance here to Active Directory. So that's native Active Directory integration. And the Active Directory, the domain controller is on a static IP, so I just put in the static IP address. If you have a fully qualified domain name, you can use the fully qualified domain name as well. And the friendly domain name typically would be the same domain name as you would see if you were using any of the Active Directory management console tool from Microsoft. You're going to see the exact same friendly domain name. They do need to match. And you can use a user, typically a domain admin user, who's capable of querying the Active Directory. You can also publish users' home drive, from Active Directory if you have those. So now you need to set up a kind of like a master repository for the storage. So for now, I'm going to use the easiest storage option, which is a folder on the C drive. A folder on the C drive on this local machine is going to be powering all the different users who's using the system here for online collaboration and file sharing. And those users will be using their own Active Directory credentials for pass-through authentication. So now, after setting up the Active Directory, setting up the storage, now the system is up. It's up and running. You can see the web portal is up. You can browse the files and folders. The next step for you probably just going to set up a fully qualified domain name and set up SSL certificate, so you don't need to use the local host anymore. That's further configuration, but for now the system is up and running. It's done. Thank you very much.